I started to question in my mind, what does yield per acre tell you? It only tells you the commodity, its weight that left the farm. It doesn't tell you what state the land was left in. It doesn't tell you what is the state of the farmer. You just measure the weight. But the weight doesn't tell you anything. Because it doesn't tell you, A, if it's nutritionally empty, and all the research is showing 60% to 70% of the nutrition in food has disappeared in industrialized countries. And it doesn't tell you what are the toxics in it. I always find it a scandal that organic has to label itself. And the toxic food doesn't have to put a label. When you eat this apple sprayed by this and this and this, you're having these chemicals whose proven impact is this, 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 this. That should be the true, honest labeling. So I said, this doesn't tell you anything. And I had started to measure biodiversity productivity. And I said, what matters is health per acre and nutrition per acre. And what is being recognized is, because of size, if we bred peach, we had smaller peaches, and the new breeding is big peaches. We had small apples, and now we have big apples. We had nice tomatoes, and now we have big tomatoes. So bigness was treated as superiority, which should be the logic of a cancer cell. It's the only cell that doesn't know when to stop growing. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Healthy cells stay small, stay to their scale, and renew and replenish themselves. So this idea of bigness doesn't capture anything. New research is showing that indigenous seeds are nutritionally dense. And a colleague in the European Institute in Sardinia has worked out how indigenous fruits, which are much smaller, have 40 to 50 times more nutrition than the new breeding. But an even more important study in Sardinia has shown that people live up to 100 years. In the areas where the farming is still ancient farming, they work their farms, they eat the old crops, and they're not growing commodities. And they're living up to 100 years, average age. Just look for Sardinia and you'll get this data. But my own research and my own thinking has been that if you add more nutrition to the soil will have more nutrition. And I want to share with you our data on, let me see if I can find this very quickly for you. We have very detailed studies on soil. We did a 20-year analysis of our valley, including our farm. And we compared, the top soil ecologist of India did this for us. And we compared chemical soils, the farms that had been farmed chemically for 20 years, and farms that had been farmed continuously organically for 20 years. And then we looked at different crops, about 10 kinds of crops, so that the data came not just from one kind of crops, but from mustard and wheat. And let me just read out this data to you. So the organic matter in these 20 years has gone down by 14% in the chemical farms because it replenishes no organic matter. It's only putting nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It has increased between 29 to 99%. And the difference is because there are different crops being grown by different farmers. But more interestingly, when you put synthetic nitrogen, you imagine you have more nitrogen in the soil. In the chemical farms, the nitrogen has gone down between 7 to 22%. By applying more nitrogen that originated in Hitler's ammunition factories, you're actually robbing the soil of 22%. And then in the organic farms, it's increased 21 to 100%. But for potassium, phosphorus, NPK, the chemical agriculture is an NPK agriculture because these can be commodified and industrially produced. But we need zinc. The zinc has gone down up 37% in the chemical soils and gone up 14% in the organic soils. Magnesium and zinc, I had a top leading public health scientist from Australia visit the farm, and this study had just been completed, and I was showing her this result. He says, all falls into place. As a public health scientist, I'm finding huge amounts of depression among teenagers. And I do the biochemistry of the brain to understand what's going on. And they all have zinc deficiency. And I can't figure out why they have zinc deficiency. But now, seeing the way you farm tells me that our foods are nutritionally empty because we don't have zinc in the soil. The zinc won't go to the plant. It won't come to our diet. So zinc down 37%, up 14%. Magnesium, which has been researched as being a big contributor, its deficiency being a big contributor to attention deficit, it has gone down 17% and up 14% in organic. And iron, which is a big deficiency in the world, has gone down 12%. So the issue is you don't give back to soil, you're robbing the soil. So the soil, which doesn't only have what you give into it, but it has this amazing soil web, which is then creating nutrition. And then that is taken up by plants. And when we grow different kinds of plants, they take up the nourishment in different ways and amplify it. So these micronutrients and trace elements that are rich in the soil that get multiplied further in plants. And when we eat a diversity of these plants, the phytochemicals in those plants then nourish our gut. That is the secret of health, and its absence is the secret of disease.